Hey there, guys, and welcome into Pickup Sports Talk. I'm Spencer Stein.
And I'm Brandon Schiffman. We have a ton to get to this episode, including it's finally time, NBA Finals.
They're here.
Super duper excited. Keep talking about the NHL Playoffs. They've been crazy recently. We're going to talk a little bit about tennis, a little bit about golf, and we're going to have a huge NFL debate at the end. So make sure to lock in for this episode. It's going to be great. Let's start with the NBA Finals here.
Yep.
We have on one side, you have the Celtics. On the other side, you have the Warriors. But let's backtrack a little bit and talk about the Eastern Conference Finals a little bit because we never were able to talk about that because of the timing of our last episode. You want to open this up?
Yeah, sure. Celtics beat the Heat in 7 games. Honestly, I thought the Celtics were easily going to close them out in 6 at the Garden, but Miami took one on the road to force Game 7. Game 7 in Miami. Boston had a wire-to-wire win. From the jump, they scored the first points of the game and never looked back. However, Miami ended the game they had an 11-0 run, then they were down 2 with the ball with a chance to tie or go ahead, and Jimmy Butler, who was on fire, driving up the floor, pulled up for 3 when he could have had an easy 2 on Al Horford to tie the game, missed the 3. Celtics got the rebound, got fouled. Marcus Smart got fouled, hit 2 free throws. Miami lost. I want to ask you about Jimmy's shot.
I personally believe, you can look back and say it's a bad shot. I personally believe it was the right shot.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it, he's been on fire the entire series. There was no one else there were times during that series and throughout the playoffs where I've been like, he has no help. Like, it looked like that out there. He's been playing through an injury. He's been playing amazing. He had 47 the other night. That was his shot to take. He's happened to miss. But that's how people forget that's kind of how his game is. He's a momentum guy. He shoots when he's open. He shoots when he has the hot hand. And that's when his best play is done. I personally expect him to hit the shot. It's an unfortunate bounce off the front of the rim. It happens. It's definitely a tough look. He's going to look back, and he's one of those guys who's competitive. I know that he's going to look back on that shot and think of it as almost like something to get his revenge for, maybe next year, maybe in the years to come. But I personally had full belief in Jimmy in that shot, and I don't think anyone on the floor had a better shot at that moment than Jimmy pulling up from 3.
I mean, I disagree with that last point because Jimmy could have driven on Al Horford. I think had an easy bucket. But I also agree the 3 is right because the Heat were playing with heavy legs. They were the worst team all game, and overtime would not have treated them nicely. I'm just going to leave it at that.
They were in foul trouble.
Tyler Hero was hurt. He played 7 minutes that whole game. And last week I blamed him for being injured. Now it's like, okay, he kind of tried. And I don't necessarily blame him. PJ Tucker's old. Kyle Lowry's old. Who knows? Victor Oladipo's somewhat old. He might have been their best player that game, at least in the plus-minus he was. But Jimmy had 35, Bam had 25, Lowry had 15, and Jimmy was going to go for the win there. I don't blame him for the shot. Yes, I think he could have driven and took the layup, but I think then they lose in overtime, so I do think that's the right shot. Before we move on to the finals, do you have any last thoughts on the Heat season?
I personally have one thing. I talked to you about this a little bit the other day. I have a take about the Heat that isn't necessarily a hot take. It's just kind of weird. So, as I watched the Heat for the past few years, there's one player that always stuck out to me beyond anyone else, and it's not because his stats necessarily jumped off the page, but it was Goran Dragic. He was averaging, over the past few years with the Heat, he averaged, I think, around 15, 16 a game. He was a consistent, 6-man guy who could get a bucket at all 3 levels, and he was good at running their offense. He's a good glue guy. I think them trading him for Kyle Lowry was completely the wrong move, because I think that what he brought to the team and that spark plug type player was worth more than Kyle Lowry's good defense but inconsistent offense. I think Kyle Lowry's inconsistent offense disrupted the team, and if you look at the regular season as a whole, the team was better when Kyle Lowry was hurt. I think it speaks volumes about it. I'm not calling Lowry a bad player by any means. I just don't think the fit with him and the Heat is there, per se.
They didn't lose because they had Kyle Lowry instead of Goran Dragic. They lost because Duncan Robinson disappeared. Tyler Hero was hurt and not himself whatsoever during the playoffs. He was in the regular season. And if you look at their lineup, who would have thought that Max Strus and Gabe Vincent would be starting many playoff games? Strus was a consistent star. I'm not hating on Max Strus, but Lowry's not the reason. I think if they have Dragic, they're not in the NBA Finals right now. I don't think you could convince me that if Goran Dragic is on the Miami Heat, they're in the Finals right now.
I'm not necessarily saying that. What I'm saying is Kyle Lowry's inconsistency didn't help them, whereas Dragic was always a consistent 15 points per game.
So how much better do you think they'd be with Dragic?
I'm not saying that they would have made the Finals per se, but I think it definitely hurt them in the long run. I think that trade, they're going to look back on that and wonder what exactly went down. And honestly, Goran Dragic,
Dragic hasn't played well this year either.
I mean, that's true, but I think when he was with the Heat, he averaged 19 a game, we said, in their 2020 Finals run. He was a key piece, and he seemed to show up in the big moments. Lowry was the opposite. There were times on posts where there were people saying, bet the Kyle Lowry under 7.5 for this game. That should not be an all-star level point guard.
I don't think they do better with Dragic last year, and I think going into next year, I would rather have Lowry than Dragic. I'll leave it at that. Let's get into the finals. Celtics-Warriors. I'm super pumped for this matchup. Out of the West, I wanted the Warriors. Out of the East, I was happy with Bucks or Celtics, so I'm glad with this matchup. Brandon, what are some keys to each team?
I think, honestly, the Celtics as a whole need to just keep doing what they've been doing. The biggest thing for them is just offensively keep their momentum. They're one of those teams where they'll get it one bucket, then you blink and they're on a 10-0 run. They have a bunch of big momentum guys, Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, Robert Williams, just a bunch of big momentum guys. They need to just work to get started in the game and not give up. They're one of those teams that I feel like when they get hot, they're impossible to figure out.
Yeah, for me, I think the key to the Celtics is obviously Tatum and Jaylen Brown need to be themselves. Obviously, Al Horford needs to keep scoring in bursts like he does, and Robert Williams needs to be healthy. But two big keys that are somewhat unexpected, in my opinion, Marcus Smart and Derek White's defense, 100%. In the games where they've played the Warriors, the 2 games this year, and I guess Derek White on San Antonio, Derek White and Marcus Smart guarded Steph Curry incredibly. I think he went 1 for 7. I don't think he had many points. I think he was held 30% shooting career against one of them. So I think if their defense, they could somewhat stifle Curry and Klay. I'm not saying stifle them completely. That's an impossible feat. But I'm saying put Jason Tatum in a position where he can outplay Steph Curry. And that job is allocated to Derek White and Marcus Smart. If they can do that successfully, the Boston Celtics can win this series.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Another guy that I think is critical for them is just Peyton Pritchard needs to hit his shots when he gets in the game. You saw it a lot in the Nets series. I think there were 2 or 3 games when they'd sub him in and he hit 3 3-pointers in 3 possessions. It's little things like that win you a series. It's not it's good defense. It's small runs. It doesn't need to be Tatum having 40 a night. It's the little things like that really build up and win series for them.
Yes, but then again, Peyton Pritchard had 2 and 4 minutes in the last 2 games. Mm-hmm. So I think if he's playing, it's in his 3 minutes, not going to make a huge difference. I agree the little things matter, but I don't think that specifically is one of the little things that should matter. How about the Warriors? What can they do to win this series?
Honestly, they just need to put Curry in a position to succeed. And if Curry, like you said, I like how you said it, if Curry, if they find a way to stop Curry, they have so much talent offensively, whether it's Poole, Wiggins, Klay, or even Gary Payton II, just make sure someone's scoring the ball constantly because Boston's one of those teams that you give them a lead, they run with it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think it's as much Curry as making sure Klay and Poole can score. Poole has been scoring really well, he did in the Western Conference Finals, but I feel like Poole hasn't been as good as he was in the first round, and there were games where they won the game because of Jordan Poole this year and the first round. So I think obviously Curry's play is huge, but if they can put themselves in a position where they can win without Curry scoring 20, if they can win games with Jordan Poole being their leading scorer or Klay Thompson being their leading scorer, that's good. So I think a lot of this series is dependent on if Klay can score the ball especially and Poole off the bench. Plus they're getting Gary Payton back tonight. So I think a lot of this series is dependent on guard play. We know we're going to get out Jason Tatum. We know Curry's going to score the ball somewhat. We know Wiggins will put in his points and Draymond will put in his 2 cents. But I think a lot of this comes down to the Golden State Warriors guards offense versus the Boston Celtics guards defense.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's going to be a really good series. I'm super duper excited for it.
Yeah, so let's do full predictions. You want to go first or you want me?
Yeah, I personally have the Warriors winning this in 6. This is I feel like it's become a hot take. I mean, I saw ESPN.
No, they're favored in Vegas. Come on now.
Yeah, but I saw ESPN BPI giving the Warriors a 13% chance to win. Which
yeah, I mean
that baffled me. Even I understand if they have the Celtics with a 60% chance, but high 80s.
And also, 538 gave Boston an 80% chance.
Yeah, I don't know where these computer programs are getting this from, but
back in February, BPI said the Boston Celtics were the favorites to get out of the East. I think they were over 500 at that point. I said they were my second best team. You called me crazy for following BPI. I don't know. I might follow them again, but continue with your prediction.
Yeah, so I personally have the Warriors winning Game 1, losing Game 2 at home, losing Game 3, winning Games 4 and 5, and then winning Game 6. So I have them ending the series on a 3-game win streak.
Oh, yeah. So everyone in this series is talking about the Golden State Warriors finals experience, and they have tons of it, and the Boston Celtics have zero. They don't have one player with finals experience, and they have a first-year head coach. But I want to counter that with this. How about this year's team's experiences in the playoffs? The Boston Celtics have gone through Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. They've gone through the defending champs, led by the best player in the league, and they've gone through the Miami Heat, who have proven that they can make the finals. The Golden State Warriors, who have they gone through? Dallas Mavericks team with a young Luka Doncic, not too difficult to beat. In the second round, they beat the Jazz?
I
No,
think it was the Nuggets, right?
it was. I'm not sure. I can't believe I was super blanking on that. But the Warriors, and it's about these teams. Yes, the Warriors may have more finals experience, but this Jordan Poole team with guys like Poole and Wiggins, they beat the Grizzlies in the second round. That team does not have as much experience playing good teams in these playoffs. The Celtics do. Yeah. So I don't think the finals experience is a huge advantage for the Warriors. I think the Warriors will take game 1 at home because they've had longer rests. I think the Celtics come out game 2 firing, take that. I think the Celtics win game 3 in the Garden. The Garden is such a huge advantage. Golden State will take game 4. It'll be 2-2, reset best of 3 series. Going back to Golden State will take game 5. Game 6 in the Garden, Boston will take. And game 7, I am taking the Boston Celtics to win a game 7 in Golden State. So you have Warriors in 6. I have Celtics in 7.
I said the exact same until 6 and 7.
Yeah, yes, we trust that Curry will play well in a game 7. But in game 7, 2016, he didn't play insanely well, and we saw a team with LeBron James and Kyrie Irving lead a game 7 win, and right now Jason Tatum is going to cement himself as a top 2 player in basketball. They are going to win game 7 on the road to get an NBA championship. I'm not rooting for it. I don't want the Celtics to raise banner number 18, but I think the Celtics are my favorites in this series.
I don't think it's fair necessarily to compare Jason Tatum right now to 2016 LeBron.
I'm not. I'm saying I'm comparing the 2016 Warriors to this year's Warriors.
Okay, I thought you were saying that like Jason Tatum was like your.
No, I'm just saying I think Jason Tatum's gonna have a huge game, and he's gonna have a guy like Kyrie, or this year it's gonna be Jaylen Brown hitting that 3 that matters a lot late. So I think the Celtics, I favor them slightly. I think the Warriors should be favored in Vegas because they have that experience and because they've been dominant all postseason. Yeah. Yes, the Celtics have had harder competition, but it's not like the Warriors faltered against their easy competition. No, they won series in 5 games, 6 games very easily. So I think this series is such a toss-up. I'm super pumped for it. Mm-hmm. I am picking the Celtics.
That's a completely fair take. I personally am standing with the Warriors right now. I just think
it could go either way.
I was gonna say I really think that it just depends. Like we could look at after game 1 will be a good indicator for me at least I think because both teams could really show up or might not show up and we don't really know.
I mean, I would not bet on either of these teams in this series. It's such a toss-up. If I were to bet though, I'd bet either Tatum or Steph for MVP because I don't think anyone else is getting it. And we're gonna talk later about Steph's legacy if he wins the Finals MVP here. Because if you didn't know, he's never had one. Let's move on to the NHL playoffs, as I've been calling them all year, the better playoffs. Mm-hmm. Both conference finals are set and have started, but first I want to talk about Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Rangers, Hurricanes. The Rangers won that game. The Carolina Hurricanes played utterly atrocious in that game. I said it to myself, I need to mention this. They played sloppier than I've seen them play all season at home where they hadn't lost a game all playoffs. They gave the New York Rangers a chance to capitalize. And on the power play, the Carolina Hurricanes couldn't do anything. It was a consistent theme all postseason, and they were just stifled on their own power plays. Early, they fell down to a 2-0 lead. They had a chance on a power play to score, and they had a lot of opportunities, but Igor Shesterkin shut them down. So I just felt like I had to get that out of the way. Also, they had some injuries, but the Carolina Hurricanes disappointed me there. Regardless, now we are in the conference finals. Rangers, Lightning, Avalanche, Oilers. Brandon, starting in the East, who got Rangers, Lightning. The Rangers took game 1.
The Rangers took game 1 with authority, and I want to say the Lightning just because I've kind of stuck with them, so I'm going to keep up with them. But this is going to be a tough series for them for sure. The Rangers they've been probably the hottest team in hockey, I want to say. So the Lightning, they have an uphill battle right now, but I think that their championship experience could potentially help them.
I'm rooting for the Rangers hard. I love Panarin. This is the best goaltending matchup we could imagine in hockey. The best goaltender from this year, and then the best goaltender in the league because he's won the last 2 Stanley Cups. I think the Lightning are going to take the series because the Rangers are going to start getting fatigued later. But last night, I was so happily surprised by the Rangers play. Other series, Avalanche Oilers. 8-6 game 1, the Avalanche won it. We haven't seen a game that high scoring in the playoffs in so long. Do you think tonight's going to be as high scoring in game 2?
I don't. I think both teams are going to... I think that it was like a game 1 situation where both teams kind of came out firing. I think it's going to be a little bit more settled. But with that being said, the 8-6 game was so entertaining to watch. Yeah. So I hope it's just as entertaining, but who knows? These are two of the most fun to watch teams
I mean,
in hockey.
this is what happens when you get the two best players in hockey playing against each other. Connor McDavid versus Nathan McKinnon. Yeah. It's gonna be really interesting. A big storyline to watch. Colorado's goaltender Darcy Kemper got hurt last game, so we'll see if he could play tonight. Their backup's 40 years old, I think, and we know Mike Smith's gonna put up a show for the Oilers. Yeah. So I think the Oilers will win tonight because of the Colorado's goaltending issues. But I still have the Avalanche in the series. I still have the Avalanche winning the cup.
Yeah, I do too, but I want to say the Oilers have made such a run, and I think it says a lot about McDavid. A lot of people's argument about McDavid, even coming into this year, is that he doesn't win in the playoffs. I think this year's slowly chipping away at those claims.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So that's a good amount of NHL and NBA. We're going to keep track of those closely. I'm really excited to see who gets in the Stanley Cup because these are 4 exciting teams. I genuinely say that. Each of these teams I have fun watching, and I was worried that wasn't going to happen this year. Mm-hmm. Before we move on to some golf, I want to do a quick Wimbledon update. I know I'm a tennis fan, but first I'll start on the women's side. Coco Gauff won this morning to reach the finals. She's only 18 years old. She was a huge story 2 years ago, but she's still super young. Sadly, she's going against Iga Swiatek, the best player in women's tennis. She's won 34 matches in a row. That ties Serena's record all time. She's going to get done in the final. On the men's side, we saw Nadal beat Djokovic. On clay, we know Nadal's historically better, and Nadal is still, people forget it, has the most major championships in men's tennis history. Right now, he's the GOAT. I know Djokovic is still going to try and catch him, but I think he's got to be the favorite now. He's playing Zverev in the semifinal. In the other semifinal, we have the Norwegian Ruud playing versus Marian Cilic, who has won a major before, so that's going to be interesting, but I got to go with Nadal. Even if you're not a tennis fan, the French Open final is always entertaining. Something goes down. It's on NBC, so check that out.
Yeah, for sure. Tennis has been a lot of fun to watch recently. I will say so myself. Let's get to some golf. How about that? So obviously we had the match. I
kind of have 3 golf storylines here.
Let's start with the match, as you'd say, even though I know you hate it.
Yeah.
My prediction, and I think your
prediction happened yesterday.
Was true. Yeah, my prediction, your prediction happened to be true. Rodgers and Brady beat Mahomes and Allen. There's some good trash talk. I saw Tom Brady showed Josh Allen a golf ball with a Lombardi trophy on it. It was like, hey Josh, have you seen one of these before?
Oh my god, yeah. I think it wasn't that much about the golf as much as the trash talk. It was fun to watch. I don't like that each one's the match when it started as Tiger Woods versus Phil Mickelson, and now it's quarterbacks playing each other. But as much as I hated on it before, just watching it, it's fun to see the 4 best quarterbacks in football talk to each other. Have some trash talk. So I think that was fun. Let's move on to some real golf storylines. Yeah. The LIV event, it's the Saudi Golf League. It's been started for a while. They've been trying to recruit players away from the PGA Tour and paying them a lot. The PGA has done well standing their ground. However, their first tournament's this weekend, and Dustin Johnson agreed to play in it. He's obviously a big name in golf. He lost his sponsorship from it. So do you think this is a good decision by Dustin Johnson?
I just think it's one of those things where you look at it, it really depends on how he feels about it. Because on the one hand, he's taking a lot of money to join this tour. But on the other hand, his sponsorships, he could lose a lot of credibility. Could be bad for his reputation, so it really goes both ways. I'm
really rooting against this golf league. I love the PGA. I think DJ, I hope this is the last tournament he plays with them. I hope he comes back to the PGA Tour, but it's a shame he's losing those sponsorships. I think his career's starting to wind down. I really do. He hasn't played well, and I think he's just taking the money where he could get it, even though he'll lose sponsorship. So I don't know how this affects DJ's legacy, but that's his decision.
Yep.
Last thing, Memorial this weekend, golf tournament. It's one of my favorites. I know not a lot of people follow golf outside the 4 majors, but this is one tournament. It's in Dublin, Ohio every year. Arnold Palmer started it. I think Arnold Palmer. Might have been Jack Nicklaus started it. And it's interesting every year. Brandon, who are you picking this weekend?
I'm personally taking a young up-and-comer in Cameron Smith out of Australia. He had a really good outing at the Masters. I know I was for sure rooting for him. I think he'll have a great performance at the Memorial, and I think he could take it.
John Rahm plays Muirfield Village Golf Club well every time. 2 years ago, he won. Last year, I was watching on that 3rd day. He dominated. Got a 6-stroke lead. Coming off the 18th green, they told him he had COVID. And he couldn't play the last day. Lost tons of money. Didn't get to play that final day. He would be the back-to-back champ if it wasn't for that. He's coming out for revenge. John Rahm's going to win it for what I like to call a three-peat. Even though he didn't technically win last year, that was his to win.
Valid. It's fair take.
We're going to move into, this is going to be one of my favorite debates of the year. Me and Brandon, top 10 wide receivers in football. This is going to be great. Brandon, I want you to start. We could go 1-1. So you could I want you to start with giving me your top 5.
Top 5. Okay, my number 1 has been the guy who's been consistent or just regarded as the best receiver in the NFL for the past 3, maybe 4 years. That's Davante Adams. He's going to a new team. I really am curious to see how that goes, but just based on talent, production, over the past 4 years, no one's done it better than Davante Adams. My number 2 was the best receiver of last NFL season. Historic numbers on all levels. just the guy went crazy. It was Cooper Kupp. My third, as you said, you and I have said on countless occasions over the past few years, the best weapon in football, not even best receiver, just best weapon in football, Tyreek Hill. The guy opens up an offense in ways I've never seen before. Number 4, probably the best young wide receiver in the NFL, and Justin Jefferson. I mean, the guy has completely changed the way the Vikings the guy's completely changed the way the Vikings play. He's one of the most elusive route runners in the NFL, and he's great on jump balls. He's great on 50-50 balls. Number 5 is the guy who's one of the main reasons the Bengals won the Super Bowl. They went from the least explosive offense to the most explosive offense, and the reason behind that, number 1, Jamar Chase. He's my number 5. That's my top 5.
In what world is Davante Adams ahead of Cooper Kupp?
Cooper Kupp. That Davante Adams has been better over the long term.
Cooper Kupp is coming off the greatest season of a wide receiver possibly in NFL history. He nearly had 2,000 yards. He had 16 touchdowns, and Davante Adams is doing this all with Aaron Rodgers. He had a down year. Cooper Kupp just had better numbers than Davante Adams has had in his entire career. I don't see a world in which you put Davante Adams over him right now.
I'm saying Davante Adams right now because he's been better over a long term, whereas Cooper Kupp, coming into last season, I don't like to use this debate, was seen as an afterthought.
I mean, was he seen as a guy who's performed but been injured? Yeah. In 2019, he had 1,100 yards. That's a great season. Yeah. He was hurt a lot of 2020, and 2021, he just had the best year ever. I don't see how a guy comes off a season like that, and you see a guy like Davante Adams, you know he could put up 1,300 yards like that in any given season, but the season Cooper Kupp just had is special. It's something Davante Adams could not do. He didn't do it with Aaron Rodgers. He didn't do it as the sole weapon on his team. And now Davante Adams going to a new team. I don't see how you could put him below
production and talent. Over the past half decade, Davante Adams has been doing it better than anyone else in the NFL.
Ready for this? I have Justin Jefferson at 2, above Davante Adams 2. Justin Jefferson, in his 2 seasons as an NFL receiver, has had 1,400 yards, and by the way, playing 16 games only, and 1,600 yards. Those are numbers better than Davante Adams in the last 2 seasons, and he's only a second-year player. In 2 seasons, he's had 2 better seasons than Davante Adams. In his second year, he had more yards than Davante Adams has ever had, and he's still climbing. So, once again, with Kirk Cousins.
Fair take.
And Adam Thielen. So I know Davante Adams is great. I know people think of him when they think of number 1 receiver in football, they think Adams. But really, when you dissect the play of Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp, I know that they haven't been as good over the past 5 years because one of them's only been in the league 2 years. Sure. But I think if you're looking right now, those 2 are higher than Davante Adams in my wide receiver hierarchy.
I personally just disagree on the basis that Davante Adams has been consistently better over a long period of time, but I agree with what you said about Cooper Kupp. You can't really hold how long he's been in the league against.
And then how about Tyreek Hill over Justin Jefferson? Tyreek Hill had a down year. Justin Jefferson in his 2 biggest seasons have had more yards. In his only 2 seasons, he had the most and right behind Tyreek Hill's biggest season, which was in 2018.
I personally just look at Tyreek Hill as a whole different. I almost wanted to not include Tyreek Hill in this list and just have him in a tier of his own. But that being said, I feel like it'd be almost a crime to not put him in top 3 just because of his impact on a team and how he just opens up an offense for his guys.
So I have Tyreek Hill at 5.
Okay.
My 4 is Jamar Chase.
Yeah, okay.
Here's why. It's really tough to rank a rookie.
Yeah.
Because we've only seen 1 year of experience. But the year Jamar Chase just had
historic.
Was better than any year Tyreek Hill's had in his career. That includes 2018, where he had 1,400 yards. Because Jamar Chase just had 1,400 yards, 13 touchdowns as a rookie, where we saw some games where he didn't do much. He caught a lot of balls. He didn't make mistakes. He had those deep
He did make mistakes.
He had those deep touchdowns that Tyreek Hill has without Tyreek Hill's special speed, while also making catches that a number 1 receiver not out of the slot makes. I have Jamar Chase over Tyreek Hill for those reasons, and I also have Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp, 2 young guys who are not Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson's young, but Cooper Kupp, who's only had 1 big year, above Davante Adams, because what they've done in the past year was better than what Davante Adams and Tyreek Hill have done in their careers.
I feel like I disagree on that. Just you have to look as an overview, for at least my 1 and 3, the consistency of their careers. I mean, you look at Davante Adams. Been great over 5 years. Tyreek Hill, Like you.
So are you faulting Justin Jefferson and
no, I'm not faulting
Jamar Chase for their age?
No, not at all. I'm just saying you have to look over a grand scheme.
But I don't see why, because there's no more grand scheme. Do you want to look at college? Do you want to look at how good Jamar Chase and Jay Jettas were at LSU? Because that's the only record we have them 3 years ago. I think if you're looking at players right now, yes, we want to be biased and think about, okay, Tyreek Hill's been a staple of my fantasy team for 5 years. Yes, Devontae Adams has been great for 4 years, but Cooper Kupp just had the greatest season ever, and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson in their whole careers, yes, it's only 1 year, yes, it's only 2 years, have been better than Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams at their primes, and they're still getting better. So, yes, I did put Jamar Chase behind Adams because it's only 1 year, and we've seen Adams do close to what Jamar did many times, but I think that it's not crazy to have Jamar over Tyreek Hill, and I think that putting Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp over Devontae Adams is what definitely should happen.
Mm-hmm. That's a fair take. You want to give 6 through...
Yeah, sure.
So,
sure. So at my 6, Stephon Diggs. Mm-hmm. Stephon Diggs was great in Minnesota. Then he went to Buffalo and just had 2 of his best years. He had 1,500 yards 2 years ago. Plus last year he had 1,200. Yes, Josh Allen's a great quarterback, but Stephon Diggs is a perfect fit for him. I have Stephon Diggs as my 6. And by the way, this little tier of Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen is like hard to rank between the 4 of them. They're all kind of older guys. And what's most difficult for me isn't ranking the 4 of them. It's like where to put younger guys like Debo and CeeDee Lamb and DK Metcalf within the guys. So I'll get to that, but Stephon Diggs is my 6.
My 6, DeAndre Hopkins. This is a guy that, although he's coming off an off year, for the past I think 8 years, maybe even a decade, has been arguably the best receiver in football. The stats speak for himself. He's the best just end zone threat in the NFL. He's the best 50-50 guy in the NFL. He doesn't drop the ball. His only mistakes you can really point to are some pass interference calls, but he's even gotten better about that. His biggest issue has been injuries. He missed the majority of last season, but as a career as a whole, he's arguably the most accomplished guy.
Yeah, I mean, I started with DeAndre Hopkins my 11. I was thinking okay, he's coming off a year where he was hurt. He has the 6-game suspension. Who knows what's happening with him? And as I kept thinking more about, he crept up my list. He's my 7. My 6 is Mike Evans. Mike Evans has had 1,000 yards in every single season of his NFL career. That is insane, and I know I'm not trying to play injuries against guys, but the fact that he's been healthy and played enough to get 1,000 yards every season with both Jameis Winston and Tom Brady, with however many weapons are around him, is insane. That consistency needs to be celebrated. So I have him as my 6, with DeAndre Hopkins my 7. As you said it, DeAndre Hopkins had a 4-year stretch where he had 1,300 yards, 1,500 yards, 1,100 yards, and 1,400 yards.
Horrible quarterback play, too.
Yeah, so I'm not going to blame him too much for his injury. I will put Diggs over him because I think Diggs is elite. I think out of that group, Diggs is the best one now. And I'm going to put Mike Evans over him just because I think Mike Evans' consistency needs to be celebrated. But then Hopkins is my 7.
Mm-hmm. My 7 personally...
What was your 6?
My 6 was Hopkins.
Oh,
my 7's Diggs. Stephon Diggs, you introduced him better than anyone else, I think. Just he was good in Minnesota, then him and Josh Allen have one of those connections that you look at and it's perfect. He bust onto the scene last year and had, I think you said 1,600 yards.
Wait, so can you talk to me for a second about why do you have Hopkins over Diggs?
I've heard just over the long-term consistency.
I think Diggs has been pretty consistent long-term in the past 2 years, considering that 2 years... The last 2 years, 2 years ago, DeAndre Hopkins had 1,400 yards, and Diggs had a better season than him still. So I think the fact that Diggs had better years the last 2 years, plus the 2 years before that, he was a 1,000-yard receiver, and DeAndre Hopkins is on a completely different team. I don't think that needs to necessarily be so much into our debate. So I think Diggs, no doubt, I'm putting over Hopkins.
Yeah, maybe on production, but also you got to look at talent. DeAndre Hopkins was seen as the best receiver in the NFL 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Before Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp, you could argue, bust on the scene. It was DeAndre. It went from Julio to D-Hop to Devontae to whoever it is now. Julio AB to D-Hop to Devontae to whoever you have now.
Yeah. I don't think whoever was the best receiver 4 years ago necessarily needs to come into my conversation too much of who's a better receiver now. We're not looking at legacy of the players. We're looking at who's a better receiver now. And yes, sometimes...
So the production's still there if he was just hurt.
But I think Diggs' production has been better the last 2 years.
It's been similar, honestly. If you look at it, it really has.
It's been similar but better. And last year was insanely better. Yes, that was an injury.
He was hurt for...
I know, but even when he was playing, he wasn't insanely good. Regardless, 2 years ago, Diggs was better too, so... I'll leave it there. Brandon, let's keep it going with your list.
My 8 through 10 was really hard to place because at first Mike Evans was my 10, but then I looked at Deebo Samuel, who had an historic year. I feel like you have to include Deebo on this list just based on the fact that last year he played multiple positions. He was arguably the only reason that the Niners had the success they had. They have good defense, but offensively, he was their biggest piece. Everything ran through Debo, and I think he was their guy. He had a historic year. 9, can I go through real quick? My 9, A.J. Brown. He's one of those guys that the talent is just there. After the catch, he's the best in the league. He's great at contested catches. He's done great things even when Tannehill's been bad. I think he has a slight fall off this year. I don't love Jalen Hurts as much as I have in the past. My 10's Mike Evans. Him and my 9, I should probably switch. I actually,
Mike Evans behind A.J. Brown.
Yeah, I'm going to switch that. That doesn't look as good as it did last time.
You were bruising for a cruise in there.
Yeah, Mike Evans, I think, is my 9. A.J. Brown's my 10. Mike Evans, like you said, has been consistent. His biggest flaw, kind of like DeAndre Hopkins, has just been injuries.
Yeah, so I'll go with mine. I'll start with Debo. Debo's my 9. The reason I have him there is because Debo kept moving back on my list. He started at 6, and the more and more I thought about it, he had one good year, which is similar to Jamar Chase, but he had 2 bad years before that. A lot of what he did is in the rushing game. He only had 6 receiving touchdowns. Yeah. So I'm still putting him at 9 because of that 1,400-yard year last year and because we know what he's capable of. But that's why I kept moving down my list. My 10's Keenan Allen. Yeah. Keenan Allen I put in that same tier just right behind Mike Evans and DeAndre Hopkins because he's been a model of consistency. He's had not only 1,000 yards, but I think around 1,200 yards like the past 4 years. He's just been utterly dominant. He had 1,100 yards, 900 yards, and then he had 1,200 yards 2 years in a row and 1,400 5 years ago. So yes, I'm going a lot into the past, but he's just been so consistent, and I give them points for that.
And do you want to give honorable mention?
So I want to talk about A.J. Brown for a second. Here's what I want to do. I want you to rank CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, and Terry McLaurin, because you might change your list, but right now you have A.J., CeeDee, McLaurin, and then DK. Is that true?
CeeDee, Terry, I just need to write it down.
AJ and McLaurin.
CeeDee,
Terry. Because you have the list in front of me. You have, according to this, AJ Brown, then CeeDee Lamb, then Terry McLaurin, then DK Metcalf last. So I want you to talk about that for a bit.
So my opinion after last year, DK Metcalf didn't have a great year last year. I think
better year than AJ Brown.
Yeah, but AJ Brown missed a ton of weeks. AJ Brown was hurt for I think he missed 4 or 5 weeks last year. So AJ Brown on talent alone is probably the best out of that list.
Better than DK. Talent.
DK's talent is DK has a lot of talent, but AJ Brown I feel like he brings more to an offense. I
completely disagree.
He's arguably
DK Metcalf's bigger, faster.
Before there was Debo, whereas he's best with the ball in his hands. I think it was AJ Brown in the NFL.
He's not a similar player to Debo Samuel at all.
I'm not saying their style of play is similar. I'm saying with the ball in his hand, AJ Brown is one of the best after the catch guys. Terry McLaurin, you could argue, has had the best production just if you take into account his quarterback play. CeeDee Lamb's another one of those guys. CeeDee Lamb's been good throughout his entire career. He's been great actually, but it's just tough to rank him just based on the fact there's been some inconsistency there, and he had one really good year, and his rookie year was good, not great, if that makes sense.
So I put CeeDee Lamb atop this list, first off.
You put CeeDee Lamb first?
Yeah, I'm putting CeeDee Lamb first because although he hasn't reached his peak, and if you're looking statistically, it might not be him, I know what he's capable of. He was a number 2 receiver in that scheme. He's had quarterback troubles in his past 2 years, so I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt and putting him on top, just because he started higher on my list, just because the thought of CeeDee Lamb, and then I moved him back. Yeah. So Terry McLaurin, no doubt, should be last. There is no world in which he is in the same tier as DK.
Look at his quarterback play. We were arguing a few months ago that Terry McLaurin was the best receiver out of that draft.
Yeah, but straight up, he didn't have a good year last year.
Yeah, look at his quarterback play. Heineke.
I know, but
you said it. Russell Wilson.
Did he have Russell Wilson that much of the season? He didn't have it all of the season.
You said Russell's top 10. But Dak Prescott, you also said was top 10.
No, I know. I put CeeDee atop that. What I'm saying is that I don't think Terry McLaurin's production and his peak has been at the same level as DK Metcalf. Yes, his quarterback play is lesser, but when you're looking at DK Metcalf's credentials,
that's at least in my
I don't think so.
You need to take into account his situation.
Okay, so what I really want to compare though, because I think I'm not convincing you on that, and I no doubt don't put Terry McLaurin in the same tier as DK Metcalf, CeeDee Lamb, and AJ Brown. I want to compare DK Metcalf and AJ Brown for a second.
Right.
In their 3 years, DK Metcalf's played more games, so I give him the benefit of the doubt for that. But other than their rookie year, DK Metcalf has had more catches, more yards than AJ Brown. In addition to that, he's bigger and faster. So I think when you're just looking at building a receiver in the lab, you want a guy like DK. He's had inconsistent quarterback play because the injury this year. Yes, he had dropping problems, but he's also had more touchdowns. And AJ Brown's great. He's going to go into a new team where it's going to be interesting to see what he does with Jalen Hurts. But I think putting McLaurin and A.J. Brown ahead of DK.
I just had honorable mentions. My list, right? Well,
do you have DK above McLaurin?
I do not. My reasoning behind that is Terry McLaurin, I think you need to take into account situations.
I am.
Can you name his quarterbacks throughout his career?
Yeah, I don't think Taylor Heineke was that horrible.
Heineke, it was Wentz. It was...
He hasn't had Wentz yet.
Or Heineke, my apologies.
Fitzpatrick.
Heineke, Fitzpatrick, Haskins. Like, this is...
He didn't... I don't think he played barely with Haskins. I don't think...
It's still... These are, like,
I understand
all bottom
that.
10 quarterbacks in the NFL.
I understand this, but...
he still had the same level of production as the rest of these guys.
I don't think he had the same level of production of DK.
In this tier list, yes, he has.
Are you taking DK or McLaurin if you had to choose a guy? First off, just based on who they are.
Based on physical traits, DK. But Terry McLaurin
plus DK's had better stats.
Output
he has not had better output.
If you take into account the situation, his output, like if...
I disagree with that. I don't think so. I'm also putting DK with A.J. Brown. I think that's where the real debate is at. And what do you think about CeeDee Lamb ahead of all those guys?
I'm taking my order right now. I have to take A.J. Brown, then CeeDee Lamb, then Terry, then DK.
And you're putting Keenan Allen where in this? Like, I know he's not on the same tier, but is Keenan Allen behind all these guys? Because I know he wasn't in your top 10. I think Keenan Allen's just been a model of consistency the past 5 years.
Because he's been very consistent, but these guys, like, he almost doesn't fit into this tier because this tier of guys, like, I'm not saying he's better or worse, but this tier of guys all came from, like, a similar, like they all came into the league at a similar time.
So do you have A.J. Brown as your 9th best receiver, Mike Evans your 10?
No.
So you have A.J. Brown ahead of Mike Evans?
No, I have A.J. Brown as my 10.
Okay, and then you have Keenan Allen behind A.J. Brown?
Yeah, I guess.
All right, got it.
Yeah.
So that's noted. We could probably talk more about receivers when the season starts. Just such an interesting position group that's debatable. Sure. I still think, I don't know how you have Adams ahead of Kupp when Kupp's coming off a nearly 2,000-yard season and he won the Triple Crown, which hasn't been done since 2005, Steve Smith. He led the league in touchdowns, receptions, and yards. So that's insane. We'll move on. One last thing. The NBA. Stephen Curry, I touched on it earlier, has not won a Finals MVP. It's been Iguodala and Kevin Durant twice. Also, Curry getting back to the finals after Klay Thompson was bad or was injured. They were the second pick in the draft 2 years ago. All that adversity, and now they're back. How would a title and maybe an MVP affect Curry's legacy?
I mean, it just continues to build on an already all-time great legacy. I mean, you look at it. There aren't really people arguing anymore that Curry isn't a top 5 point guard of all time like they were a few years ago. Curry's regarded as top 5, maybe even top
I put him at 2.
Top 2 point guard of all time. He's pretty cemented right now. The biggest thing now is he's just trying to chase Magic Johnson for number 1. I don't know if he gets there though. There's a lot in his way.
Here's what he needs to do to catch Magic: title and MVP this year. And so if he wins a title and MVP this year, and then stays Curry with all the All-Stars for 10 more years or whatever, but doesn't win another title, he's gonna be behind Magic. He needs 2 titles and MVPs, I think, to get close to Magic. I think there's some truth in what Draymond Green said about Kevin Durant being double-teamed far less than Steph Curry when they played, and that's why Durant has 2 Finals MVPs. Steph Curry, in my mind, is no doubt ahead of Kevin Durant in the all-time ladder. And I think when you're looking at the point guard tier, you're exactly right, that he's second in that tier just behind Magic. So I want to talk about where he ranks all time. Is he in the top 10? Oh, maybe with a win. Here's who I think we could both agree is definitely ahead of him. Stop me if I'm wrong. LeBron, Jordan, Kareem, Kobe, Magic, Bird, Bill Russell. That's the 7 that's for sure. I also would put Wilt, Shaq, Duncan ahead of him.
As of right now.
Right now. Even if Curry wins the title, I keep those 3 ahead of him.
It's going to be interesting because there's some people who completely forget about Tim Duncan. I feel like that's a crime. Tim Duncan, although he was a quiet star, dominated.
I'm actually going to change this. I would put Curry ahead of Duncan with a title. Here's why. Duncan had 5 titles, right? Yeah, Curry would have 4. It's only 1 less. Plus, Curry's 2-time MVP. I know Duncan won MVP too, but Curry, the way he scores is just something unlike Tim Duncan. And I know people like to say Tim Duncan's underrated, but if Steph Curry's coming at him with just 1 less title, with carrying a team like Duncan, did very similar resumes with all their MVPs and all their titles, but Curry's play, I think, is just more pulverizing than Duncan's. I would still have to put him right behind Shaq and right behind Wilt, but I think he gets right in that tier with the 3 big men who are kind of considered at the back end of the top 10.
Yeah.
Would you put him above Durant and Oscar Robertson?
Absolutely over Durant and Oscar Robertson. I mean, Durant's one of the most talented players of all time, but Curry's resume just speaks for itself. He carried, he really was, 20... I mean, other than LeBron, it was Curry and LeBron in 2010's basketball. Even though Durant, you could argue, was the second most talented player, he
didn't show up.
It was Curry and LeBron.
Yeah. And I want to talk about Durant's legacy one more time. I don't trust it still, and I honestly think the Warriors getting back there looks somewhat bad on Kevin Durant. In 20 no, here's why. Let me make my comment. 2015, the Warriors win without Kevin Durant. It's like, okay, that was their first title. Maybe they were playing not as good of a lesser developed Cleveland Cavaliers team. 2016, they lose. Then they gain Kevin Durant and dominate for 2 years. People are starting to think they need Kevin Durant to win. He's just as important as Curry to that team because he wins Finals MVP too. And then to make it even worse, in 2019, they're looking like they're going to win that series until Durant goes down, and then they lose to Kawhi Leonard. Yes, Klay went down too, but I think that's the main reason. Mm-hmm. If you're looking at this team, Kevin Durant leaves, Klay Thompson recovers from 2 injuries. Yes, they did gain guys like Poole and Wiggins, but they lost Kevin Durant, and they're all older, and they still make the finals. Yes, the West week. If they win it here and Curry wins MVP, I think it kind of looks back as they might not have needed Durant as much. And I think Durant's, everyone's always saying he got 2 titles, that's all that matters. And I'm always saying, yeah, but like he was on a team who could already win. I think this adds to it. I think he's probably going to regret going to Brooklyn with Kyrie. I think that's going to blow up soon. So I really think that not only this helps Curry's legacy, I think it hurts Durant too.
I think Durant's become kind of separated from the Warriors team. It's been, 2-3 years now. I think that people are just starting to, accept the fact that kind of was what it was. And, although a lot of people think Durant was a snake for the move, that's just, it's kind of just building into his legacy. I'm not saying people are forgetting about it. People are just kind of, not thinking about that.
I just discredit his titles as MVPs, which is unfair, but I do it anyway.
I think everyone does, though, at the same time. What I'm trying to say is, it's almost becoming, a mindless thing. Oh, yeah, Durant has 2 titles, but, at what cost did they come at?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Severed every time his, NBA career to join the best team in the NBA when he was arguably a top 3 player in the NBA.
And I also want to ask you this. This is the battle between Kyrie and KD's old teams. Now you see them in Brooklyn struggling. Do you think this looks bad on either of them, both of them, maybe one worse than the other, or it's so far in the past, doesn't matter? Because I already said I think it looks bad on KD. And I think Kyrie, too. No guard has fit there well. Kemba didn't fit there either. And I think, honestly, they weren't developed with Kyrie. Yes, they played better without Kyrie, but a lot has changed since then. Brad Stevens is gone. Jason Tatum has become
run completely differently.
Yeah, Jason Tatum is now the second best player in the league. We could not have said that that long ago. So I think it hurts Kevin Durant, not so much Kyrie.
I don't think it looks great on either of them, but also I think that, like I said earlier, both players seem to be pretty detached from the situations at these points. But, I'm curious to see, what people have to say about it. Because, if I hear a compelling argument saying, this looks bad about one guy or the other, I'd be very curious to say, and that could change my mind.
Yeah.
I feel like it really does go both ways.
I agree.
You could argue for either way.
There's a lot of big picture arguments that this finals brings up with the Warriors coming back. Thank you all for listening. We got 2 episodes left. Next episode's probably going to be mid-finals. We're going to have some debates. And after it, we're going to review the finals and give some legacy updates like we just did with Curry, Tatum, Durant, all those guys. We'll also have some more big-picture NFL debates, and we'll keep the NHL going. So thank you all for listening in. And only 2 more episodes left before Season 3 next year.
Yeah, for sure. Make sure to keep tuning in. Keep watching clips. Clip viewership's been good. So, yeah, thanks.